Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Cocktails and Conversations with Adriana LaFay. Today we have the awesome Srebrenica Lejla. How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you so much for bringing me onto this platform and talking to your audience.
Definitely. I am excellent. Thank you so much for coming. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you're busy. And so for people who don't know, you guys, the Srebrenica is the owner and founder of the Lively Creative, a copywriting and branding consulting agency that helps businesses connect words to dollars. Her company helps you craft a crystal clear brand voice and messaging system with copy you can feel confident because it is effortlessly works to connect and convert your audience to clients and customers. So Srebrenica, why don't you just go ahead and tell people a little bit about you?
Yes, thank you for the introduction. So I am the owner and founder of the Lively Creative. So we started back in 2018. I started off as solo as just a blogger talking about creativity and mental health and how you bridge the gap between the two to find your purpose in life, and kind of fell into the copywriting space of writing bios for different coaches and consultants, and then finding myself being guest bloggers on a lot of different platforms. So then it turned into doing email marketing, then it turned into website copy. So really digging into the psychology of writing has been something that has turned into what the Lively Creative is today, in terms of helping companies really dig into their brand messaging and translate that into their core offer so that they can market it effectively. And now we've grown to where we currently have 2 writers in our agency. And things have really been growing exponentially this past year. So I'm really excited about our clients that we have, and especially expanding. So we're always looking for different writers to add to our projects. So of course, if anyone is interested in being a writer or doing some of the copywriting that we offer, definitely people can reach out to us as well, and we can definitely go from there.
Awesome. So it sounds like it just morphed. It started off as something kind of small and it just
it just exploded. Yeah, so it's been a great journey.
That's awesome. And I know that you and I connected a few years ago through Lily May, and I tell you, it's going to networking events has been one of the biggest things that I could say that I've experienced, as far as someone coming out of their box and getting to know different people and surrounding myself with people like yourself and Lily May. So I just am so excited about our conversation today. And today, you guys, she's going to be going over the common branding mistakes that authors make and, just entrepreneurs in general. So I will hand it over to you.
Thank you. Yes. So I definitely, so branding is definitely one of the major things where the Lively Creative started. So talking about branding is my thing for sure. So when it comes to branding, of course, a lot of people immediately think about the visuals of your branding. So people immediately think about your website, your logo, your brand colors, your brand font, the way that it looks. But a lot of people commonly overlook the fact that you can have all those things. You can have a pretty website, you can have all the visuals together, but if the messaging is not clear and it's not intentful, those visuals don't mean anything. So that's one of the common branding mistakes a lot of people have, is that they focus on the visuals before they focus on the non-visuals of branding. And typically when you work with a visual brand strategist or even a website designer, if you work with a good one, they will actually go through that non-visual branding process with you to understand, who you are, what this business does, what does your business persona sound like, what does your business persona come off to with your audience, who is your audience. So all those are key things that people often look over, because it's easy to just be like, okay, I got this pretty brand, it should sell. So that's definitely one of the biggest things of there's non-visual and there's visuals to your branding. And you always have to start with the non-visuals first to get to that big point where you can showcase your brand in a visual and appealing way. And the second key that I have here is a lot of people always misconstrue the fact that branding and marketing is the same thing. It works hand in hand, but they are very two different concepts. So with your branding is essentially your unique imprint on how you show up in your industry or in your market. So that's why your brand messaging and your brand identity is so important, because you're able to identify, okay, we stand out regardless of what everybody else is doing because X, Y, and Z. Our brand persona connects with this audience because X, Y, and Z. Like we have you essentially, when you have your brand messaging on point, you essentially are creating your own lane so that when you go out to showcase, which is the marketing, you're able to confidently show up. You're able to know where you stand. You don't have to second guess yourself as you are showcasing your brand, showcasing your business through your marketing efforts. The other way I like to explain marketing is that your marketing is essentially the how you show up. Your branding is the blueprint of who you are as a solidified person, as a solidified business. Your marketing strategies always change, like last year with COVID, a lot of people had to shift their marketing. A lot of businesses pivoted completely. But when you're really solid with your branding and your business, you just have to make small tweaks. But with your marketing, a lot of people had to completely change their marketing approach. But one thing that typically would stay constant is who you are as a business, how your business shows up, and how did your business come across to other people. I think that's one of the biggest things for sure that stands out when you are building a brand, because you're building something that is not something that's popcorn that's just going to be here today, gone tomorrow. It's going to be something that's going to be long-term, something, especially when you're writing a book. I feel like your book is definitely one of those staples where you are literally building a brand that's going to stand the test of time, because someone can go to your website, go to Amazon and purchase a book that you wrote 5 years ago, and they can still relate to you. And that's what branding is. That's making the imprint of like, yeah, that person wrote this book 5 years ago, but it's still relative to me today because they knew who they were writing about. They knew what pain points or what information was going to trigger me to stay interested in the topic, stay connected to the brand, and wanting to learn more about the brand and more about the person who created the business and the brand. So that's one of the major things, especially as authors, understanding, what is your unique imprint, and the marketing part to that is like, how are you going to reach your people? So those are the main key points of the difference between the branding and the marketing piece, for sure.
I think that is an excellent point that I don't know that a lot of people know or realize. So I think that's great. Not knowing that they work together, but I think, like you said, that is a common misconception, is that they're one and the same, whereas they do work together, but they're totally different. So yeah, that is excellent. Okay, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh no, you're fine. So yes, that's one of my favorite things to talk about branding versus marketing, because I focus heavily on the branding piece, because marketing is this whole monster in itself. Yeah. But they definitely work hand in hand. So that's, if you don't get anything else out of this conversation, understand that branding and marketing are two completely different things, but they definitely work well together, because you can market something and you not have the right branding, and then you just be like anyone else in the market. You're not going to stand out. You're not going to be like, oh, when someone sees this, there's like, oh, this is just another beauty brand, or this is just another business coach. That's where your branding comes into place. And then I have two more key pieces. Okay. The other thing with branding and your brand messaging is there's a thin line between it being about you and then it being about your audience. I know a lot of brands as they build, like it has to be about you, because you're the one that's bringing the information to the table, you're bringing the solution. But as you go out to showcase like how you help people, there's really a big emphasis on removing yourself from that, especially depending on what type of offers or services or products that you have. I know personal branding is a huge thing right now. People are focusing on building their personal brands, but it's all really about like, okay, you can talk about yourself all day, but how is this going to affect others to a point where it's going to do something for them? Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about marketing. So as you market yourself and as you market your brand, you definitely want to keep in mind, okay, I can talk, there's a little bit about me because people still want to connect with the person, but I do need to speak to my ideal client, to my ideal audience, so that they can know, like, I'm inviting you into my personal space to learn more about me, to learn more about my business. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword where there has to be like a healthy balance of people knowing about you and then people knowing that you are inviting them to be in your space. Like as you're writing your book and promoting your book, and you're being an author, people want to know about you. People want to know, like, who's the mastermind behind this book that has been a bestseller on Amazon? Who is this mastermind behind, who's going to be creating the book that is going to help set people free from X, Y, and Z. Right. So it really has to have a healthy balance between you and your audience or your ideal target reader, for sure.
Okay.
And then my last main point to this with branding misconceptions and mistakes is that inconsistent messaging just equals no trust. I've seen people, launch books or, launch programs 2 months later, 3 months later, offer something completely different that's not even on the spectrum of what they spent so much time and energy in promoting and creating. So one of the tips that I'll also share is that when you are, writing your book, when you are getting ready to publish your book, take that content, take all the messaging that you can from that and use that in your marketing, use that in how you share your book. You don't have to always talk about your book, but there are really creative ways to take the content from your book to connect with others. And you can always have the call to action to be like, hey, this is a point in my book where I'm sharing this excerpt from my book or this concept from my book. You can always go back to Amazon or go to my website to purchase, but using that content, because your book is like a forever product. Like you will never run out of content as you are putting yourself out there, and you can always relate the content of your book to your offer or your service or product. If you're a business owner, or entrepreneur, there's always ways to connect that to make the picture seem very clear for the reader or the client or customer, because they want to know, okay, what does you doing this have to do with this program I'm about to enroll into? Or what does this book have to do with copywriting? Like, how is that relatable to what you're doing now? So even as you pivot, because I know there's a lot of people, like, again, has pivoted in this past year. There's definitely ways to still connect with your audience through content that you've already created, and reducing that environment of inconsistency, because as soon as someone feels like they cannot trust you or they're not people want to know what can they expect from you. So if you come with them left field with something that's totally something that they're not used to, that's going to be immediate red flag for them to be like, they can't stay consistent with one thing. So I'm not really sure how can I continue to follow this person or trust them to buy something from them if they're launching a clothing brand, they're launching a beauty business, and now they have a business consultancy. Like, what can I actually go to you for? And that really boils down to your overall branding. Like, people want to know, if I'm going to, especially with social media or your website, when I go to your page, what is the one major thing I know that I'm going to be able to see when I go to your page? And that's really your branding. That's really how simple it is. It can get complicated, but what is that one thing that people are going to refer to you or know you for?
That is an excellent point. Because social media is where it's at right now, right? So, I mean, really thinking about it, going to someone's personal page and then going to someone's business page, you definitely need to be able to notice a difference.
Yes.
So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What can you get out of what you see when you go to their page? Okay. And then content from the book as marketing. So can you give us an example of what something would be like using content from a book as a form of marketing?
Yeah, so actually I'll use an example for me, because even with the first book that I published, it has definitely evolved since then. But I know I'm focusing on the Lively Creative branding right now, but the content from my first book, Be Free, Live Creatively, is definitely more tied to my personal brand, because I've been able to kind of separate the two. So in my personal, just showing up as myself, not as specifically a business owner solely, I'm able to talk about, what is your creative process? How tapping into different creative activities can, help you find clarity in what you genuinely enjoy and what you feel comfortable with turning into from a hobby to something that can be profitable. So a lot of times in my personal social media posts, I share a lot about the creative process. I share a lot about, taking time out to do what you feel is comfortable for you creatively, exploring your creativity. But as a business owner, I talk about copywriting. That's a completely different thing. It's a creative thing, but it still is very, it's still not directly tied to what I do as a copywriter. So those are the type of things that are in my book. And I just naturally just make a post about creativity or just giving advice of what's one creative thing that you can do this week, or even in the Lively Creative newsletters, we talk about copywriting, we talk about the business, and I always like to put one small creativity tip in there, and that's also can be relatable to the book that I wrote back in 2018. So there's ways to pull that content out and find ways to implement that into various forms of connecting with your audience. So that for me personally, that has that's what I personally have done in terms of using my book and still using it years later to promote content for my personal brand, and then adding a little bit to it to the business branding as well.
That's amazing. I don't know why I never thought about that, but that's a great point.
Yeah, because I'm thinking even another example, I'm just gonna, I guess, make something up because I'm pretty sure this might be something that someone actually has a book about. So even if you have a book about overcoming adversities, and then that person decides, hey, I'm going to start a group coaching program about your mindset and how you can overcome trials and tribulations in your life. You can use content from that book to build your program. You can use content from that book to say, I'm going to take this content from the book, and each chapter can be a stage of the program that I'm going to have for the people that's going to enroll to my program. So, and even with the marketing efforts, showcasing, what is going to be in the program, what we're going to discuss, what we're going to talk about, which essentially drives back to the book. Okay, in the book, we talk about, dealing with past trauma. We talk about techniques you can share, in our program. We're going to actually walk you through that process of how to identify past trauma and coping techniques. So examples like that is how you would pull information from your book to turn it into an offer or turn it into content that people can relate to through social media.
Okay, learning a lot today. Well, Srebrenica, again, I really appreciate you taking the time out. How can our readers or our listeners, how can our listeners get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can always reach us at thelivelycreative.com, or you can send us an email directly at hello@thelivelycreative.com. or you can always follow us on social media, typically Instagram or Facebook at T Lively Creative.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Well, again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to sit down with Cocktails and Conversations. I can't wait to have you back on.
Yeah, I'm excited to be back on again. This is a great experience.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and I feel like, of course, author is my lane, but you have a lot of entrepreneurs out there, and like you said before, with COVID, a lot of people had to shift. So these are great tips for anyone who's an entrepreneur to, understand and see, okay, well, this is why I didn't do well. This is what I need to do to get better. Awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I can't wait.
Well, I hope this information has been helpful because it's definitely stuff that, I've noticed over the past 4 years, and even things I've experienced myself and had to learn myself. So always open to sharing, insights when I can of stuff that I noticed that would have been helpful if had I known like a long time ago. So
right, that's why I was saying the tip that you provided about the branding, like when you go to someone's social media, what do you see about them? And that was one of the conversations that I had with a branding person, was because when they went to my social media, they didn't see author, Adriana LaFay. They saw personal Adriana LaFay. So with that, I had to rebrand that so that you could see, okay, this is what I am and this is what I'm about. So I totally understand where you're coming from with that, because it is important. You want people to understand, yes, I have a personal side and you can see that on this end, but no, this is my business and this is what I'm doing here. So it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, for sure. Because especially like when you are really into the weeds of your business and you're being successful with that, you definitely want to make sure you show up a certain way, but you also still want to be authentic to yourself. Like, I know I'm not going to always post on my personal page super professional or business like content, but overall people still know I'm a copywriter. I help people with their brand messaging, but you're still gonna get some regular Srebrenica too in there. So it's definitely a good mixture of both, because you still want people to have that human connection to you as well, but still having some hints there, like, okay, this is what she does, and this is who she is. This is what she does outside of her work.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, well, I can't wait for our next sit down.
Yes. Yeah, I'm really excited about our next topic, so I'm looking forward to that as well.
Me too. All right, guys, that is another episode of Cocktails and Conversations. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. See you next time.